Globalization is the process in which societies, cultures, and economies are increasingly becoming more and more intertwined. Now, at first, this may seem like something that would be beneficial to the world, right? Wrong. Although there are many opportunities that rise due to globalization, there are many challenges we face every day because of it. One of the main challenges in globalization, and the one that we will be focusing on today, is human trafficking. Human trafficking is modern-day slavery that allows people to profit off of the control and exploitation of others. The three main types of human trafficking that we are going to focus on are sex trafficking, labor trafficking, and organ trafficking. Many people believe that sex trafficking is not a domestic problem and that it only occurs in developing countries. Unfortunately, sex trafficking takes place worldwide. Those who are sex trafficked are forced into prostitution and pornography, and traffickers use rape, physical abuse, and food and sleep deprivation to control their victims. There are around 21 to 36 million victims enslaved around the world, 25% of which are under the age of 18. Traffickers may kidnap their victims, but they often lure their victims by promising them work and a better life. In 2011, it was found that of the cases reported in the United States, 80% of victims were American citizens, 50% of which were minors, and 90% of victims were abused as children, and 75% of those victims attempted suicide. The average age of victims is between the ages of 12 and 14 years old. The pimps selling these victims make around $632,000 a year and sell their victims at massage parlors, truck stops, on the streets, at motels, in houses, on websites, in newspapers, and by phone. Unfortunately, sex trafficking is a very mobile business, so pimps and their victims do not often stay in the same place for very long. Many countries also lack severe penalties for those who traffic victims. However, there are many ways that we can help to reduce the amount of people who are sex trafficked. You can create PSAs and help raise awareness in the issue. The more we talk about it and the more we get involved, the more people we can get to help take action. We can also educate people, especially children, about the dangers of being sex trafficked and the warning signs to look for. And lastly, we can teach young boys that it's not okay to buy people for sex. If we end the demand, there will no longer be a need for the supply. Labor trafficking is the recruitment, harboring, and transportation of people for labor services against their will. Labor trafficking takes place in different forms, from those who work in factories to those who work in agriculture to those who are domestic workers. Labor trafficking is often an issue in countries where there are minimal labor laws to protect their workers, although it is still present in developed countries as well. Sadly, children are often sold by their parents so that they can be trafficked, and an estimated 25% of all victims are children. Victims of labor trafficking that work in factories often work in unsafe and unfair working conditions. They are discriminated against, harassed, and often have to work 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week, with small or no breaks. The factories have bars on their windows, and the owners lock their doors so the employees cannot escape. Agriculture is also another area where a lot of labor trafficking occurs. 60% of all children who are trafficked work in agriculture. Traffickers lure their victims by providing a false hope of jobs. They then isolate their victims in rural areas and threaten their families or deportation if they do not work. Domestic work is another area where people are trafficked for labor. They often work 10 to 16-hour days for little or no pay. In 2017, there were 1,249 cases of labor trafficking reported in the United States alone. There are ways we can help to end labor trafficking, such as labeling our food with fair food stickers, such as fair trade chocolate, and making a conscious effort to buy these products. We can also be smart, informed consumers and ask questions like, where were our clothes made and who picked my vegetables? Lastly, we can raise awareness about the issue and boycott companies that refuse to participate in safe and fair labor practices. The infographic shown here shows how many slaves, the revenue, and as a whole in a year, how much one slave makes per year based on each section of the world. It also shows the percentage of trafficking victims that are present in each sector of trafficking. Lastly, it includes a breakdown of how much money is generated by each sector of trafficking out of the $150 billion that are collected every year by traffickers. The last form of labor trafficking that we're going to talk about is organ trafficking. Organ trafficking is the buying and selling of organs for transplants. It is estimated that around 10,000 transplants take place annually with trafficked organs, and that about 5 to 10% of all kidney transplants worldwide are with trafficked organs. The problem is caused by the shortage of organs available for those in need of a transplant. The Organ trafficking generates about $600 million to $1.2 billion annually and usually takes place in developing countries. Organ brokers usually lure poor, uneducated individuals with the promise of a better future and financial gain. Unfortunately, this is not true. Many of those whose organs are trafficked barely see any of the money from the organ, and they often develop health problems that lead to more financial stress. Patients who purchase the organs are normally from rich countries and travel to buy the organs. This, however, has its downfalls. The procedures are expensive, and the organ often ends up shutting down almost immediately after the surgery is performed. There are some ways we can help to prevent organ trafficking from happening. We can raise awareness about the issue and use that as a platform to encourage countries to make laws to ban organ trafficking. We can also encourage a healthier lifestyle so that less people develop the need for an organ transplant and we can end the demand. Although globalization has many benefits, it also has many drawbacks, as I've stated. However, if we work together to combat these challenges, we will be able to make globalization a very positive concept for everyone. Thank you.